Hi everybody. Nice to see you and welcome. I'm Sophie. I'll be chairing the session along with Siobhan, who will be co-chairing with me and being a facilitator. And very importantly, so this visit will be the house of Samin and Raveena. It promises to be really interesting. So Samir is an architect, and it is together with Raveena their first retrofit in a way project using, very interestingly, that's really what appeals to me with this presentation, natural materials as much as possible. It's the practice ethos of Samir's practice.
Hi everyone, my name is Samir and
I'm Raveena.
And together we're Conscious Design Studio, and this is our first house project as architects, designers and makers. So the project is based in Willingham, and it's a 1920s Edwardian property. Quite fortunate as a village to have a website with so many historic photos. So on the right hand side of the photo is where the house, obviously it wasn't built here, but this was what was before. And then this is a 1950s shot of the house.
So the house was built in 1920s, and it was owned by a dairy farmer. He was the biggest dairy farmer in the village. And in 2005, he sold off most of his land and part of his building to David Wilson developers. And since then, the house has been sort of rented, so it hasn't been updated very much internally. And it was a traditional gold brick house, so single skin of brick. And that's the images.
Yeah, so when we initially bought the house in 2021, it was a first project for us, and that's why we bought the house, to have as a project, because it was a solid brick home, lacked insulation, and it wasn't to modern standards. And there was also a bus stop right outside the house. So right next to the bus stop, you actually see the front door, which is where people would have entered in the past. So not quite ideal to have a bus stop right outside your front door. And yeah, on this courtyard image, that was the portion of land that got sold, that got sold separately to the nursery on the side. Just some existing images. So the staircase was quite a bit of a problem. So yeah, the big portion of the works was to, I wouldn't really say relocate the staircase because they're pretty much in the same position, but just to open them up.
They were really steep as well. They're sort of steep Victorian stairs, so probably not to building reg standard. And they were just very uncomfortable to kind of use on a daily basis. What we loved about the house was the proportions of the rooms and the big windows. The ceiling heights in the house was also a really great feature. So what you can see here is what we added to what we demolished was the porch, and what we added was a 9-meter square extension, which allowed us to create a sort of draft lobby entrance and a new set of stairs in this hallway.
Cool. So when we designed the home, we came up with a concept for the house because when we first moved in, as we knew we were going to do a lot of the works ourselves, we had bought a CNC machine, something that we could experiment with throughout the project, along with all of the other tools that we'd require. So as a good starting point, we have the 5 elements, and then earth, fire, air, space, water, and then these are linked to a platonic solid in our existence. So a platonic solid is a solid that has the same face and the same angle between each face. There's 5 of these in our existence: the tetrahedron, hexahedron, octahedron, isosahedron, and dodecahedron. And these are linked to a element. So yeah, you can see on the screen how they're linked. And then what we did is we split the house into 5 sort of areas, spaces. So you've got kitchen, which is the fire because you cook from fire. You've got the dining room, which is the earth, because essentially you're eating from the earth. You got air, which is the living room, breathe in the air. Bathroom, which is water, because you cleanse yourself, and then bedroom is space. I think it's the most spatial part of life. So then this became a concept that would use throughout the house, and it would be a starting point for all of the patination that you see. Some spaces didn't have a set sort of starting point, so there we've tried to incorporate sort of all of the platonic solids. These was just some initial sort of sketch ideas of what the form would be, what detailing we could achieve.
So we've just got a short video which is a sort of time lapse of us building this extension for the porch and insulating the external property. So we'll just hit play on that. Whilst we... So we started off by demolishing the porch, which then led on to the foundation works, to then building up this timber frame, which we had a carpenter on site with us for 5 days, and then we took another 3 days to finish off the roof. We used thin fleece insulation in between the timber frame and a plywood sheet on the external face. And that's the roof done with roof tiling.
Bespoke lead work.
Yep.
And then the cork insulation to the existing house. So the cork insulation, the systems that we've used within the extension and upgrading the old fabric, we've tried to keep as breathable, well, with them as breathable systems that allows moisture to pass through, so you don't get the, well, it's less likely that you'll get buildup of mold, which hence, well, it will improve the air quality over time within the house. And we've done that through using natural materials wherever possible. So the floors on the ground floor, half of the floors on the ground floor are a glass foam insulation, which is what you see the top right. It's basically glass that is foamed. It acts as your hardcore and insulation. And then we've got a lime screed floor instead of your standard concrete slab and screed. So there you're halving the amount of material that you're laying, in essence, and it was a quicker process for us, isn't it? We we did it within 3 days.
Yeah.
And how much was that? About 35 meters squared, I would have said. We laid that much in 3 days as complete amateurs. So, and then the back rooms, the living and dining, has the Thermofleece Super Soft, which is a recycled plastic insulation. And then externally, we've got Cork, which is a 2-layer system. The first layer is a insulation board, which is a little bit less dense than your second board, which is the facade board, which gives you that rigidity. An insulation board gives you the better insulation value. And then within the timber frame and loft space, we've got Thermofleece cozy wool, which is their sheep's wool insulation. Does anyone have any questions?
Hermione.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, were you aiming for certain U values on your walls?
So the external walls, we've got 0.3. We've upgraded it to 0.3 because it's a 100 mil system. But yeah, within the extension, it's 0.15. Because there we've got an inner lining of the cork along with sheep's wool within the timber structure. Whereas on the existing house, because it was already a solid wall construction, we only put the 100 mil of external insulation on. You can by all means put on more, but we were on the high street. We're on the high street, so we're right onto the pavement.
We would have internally insulated as well, but purely because of our budget, we weren't able to stretch that to doing
But
that.
yeah, all of the works were done for £75,000. Okay, shall we move on to?
We've got a couple of questions,
Okay.
Samir, in the chat. So we have Stickelman. Would you like to unmute and ask your question? Or I can just read it out. It's just, why did you choose lime screed floor?
Again, because it came down to a breathable system. The lime's breathable.
Okay, and one from Hermione here. What fire safety did you adopt in relation to the cork?
The cork is a fire-resistant material, so it acts similar to a timber because it is a timber at the end of the day. But it just chars. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not flammable. So most of your synthetic counterparts will be flammable, but then they're covered with foil, so that provides the fireproof. But this is this natural material doesn't require any coating or whatever to give its fireproof rating.
That's great. And Amy Keast, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, hi there. I was just wondering, with your insulating your floors, did you have to dig them out first, or did you just lay all of that on top of existing floors?
So they were suspended floors, so the void was already there. We just cleaned the surface and then put a breather membrane and then started filling the geocell. Then it's followed by another breather membrane and then your underfloor heating pipes and then your screed.
Ah, okay. That's great. It's great if you've got a void, because we didn't have one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. Then you might need to dig if you want to use that sort of system.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And I've just got one question please, which is on the cork, because I haven't come across it before. Well, actually, that isn't strictly true. I came across it at the weekend in the Open Eco House at Oakington, but before that, I hadn't. Was it plain sailing with the planning permission on that?
Yeah, the Cork was actually, and it's interesting because we spoke to the local councillor. He actually came around, and it was actually very positive. Like everyone in the village were quite excited about this material coming up, rather than well, yeah, not
there's a lot.
sort of causing a concern. And I think one of the reasons why that could have been is we spoke to quite a lot of the village before we even put a planning application in, and went around with samples of the material and just what we were wanting to do, and we always wanted to be quite sensitive about what we're wanting to do. And I think the natural material side of things, because it was only about 100 years ago where we were building with natural materials. All of our conservation areas, that's why we have to build with natural materials, because that's how it was only 100, 150 years ago. So I think using that to our advantage was quite good.
That's great to hear. And just one more question about the cork insulation. Do you know where the cork comes from?
Yes, the cork actually is from Portugal. Unfortunately, we don't we don't have cork trees here to harvest the cork. So that is an unfortunate sort of way of getting it. But when we did the research, there were very few, if any, natural insulation that are actually made and manufactured in the UK. So some synthetic is, but not natural.
Well, that's interesting to hear. And I'll just add, I was just talking to my ecologist husband before the session, and he was just talking about how the cork forests, and we've seen them in Spain. I haven't seen them in Portugal, but they are really, really good for wildlife. And so that's a nice
Oh, that's
additional
good.
benefit. Yeah, the cork woods.
Just to add to that, because we were on the high street, we had a very limited amount of insulation that we could add to the existing fabric anyway, because of that restriction, that planning restriction.
Well, we're on the pavement.
Because we're on the pavement, yeah. So it kind of worked using cork because we'd achieve quite a good U value without having to add any extra cladding or render or anything like that to it. So
Great. I don't know if there are any other questions, but if not,
Maybe I'll just have one, which is maybe half a comment, but coming to it naively, initially when I read the description, I thought the cork was going to be for an inside insulation, but it's interesting to see it outside, and it's lovely even aesthetically. But did you get inspiration from other houses you'd seen, or is that a common use of
No,
insulation
it
for
was
the
always going
outside?
to be on the outside. We love the aesthetic of it, to be honest. And it's a material that changes with the seasons. So in the winter, you'll get a sort of darker color of cork, and in the summer, you'll get a lighter sort of coffee color of cork, and it sort of holds moisture more in the winter and releases more in the summer, and that's the reason why. So it was quite. Yeah, it's quite beneficial for us to utilize that, because I guess, why wouldn't you use natural materials when they're out there, rather than using synthetic materials?
I think we have gone a bit cork crazy in this house. We've used it in lots of different forms, but it is such a versatile material that, and it's quite a comforting material. And for someone who, so Samir suffers from asthma, so it was quite important to us anyway, living in this house, to have an environment where you don't have dust collecting in carpets and things like that. So the cork was
we've used it as a floor
very
finish.
beneficial.
You see that later. Shall we crack on with internals?
Yes, no more question.
So as we did most of the works ourselves, like we had to come up with a few sort of in-house manufacturing processes, just to cut on cost and still have a bespoke nature about the house. So what you see here is the process of making the external fascia boards. And what we did here, because you'll see when we get there, like all of the sills and all of the trims to the cork on the existing house are all copper, and the stain that we've used here is called malachite, which is a copper oxide. So what we did is we got the pigment and mixed it with Arabic gum to create our own paint, and then painted the ply before CNC cutting it, and then chisel and clean the cuts, and then oiled it and installed it and added copper trims to it to sort of protect it from the rain. The oiling makes it waterproof. Another manufacturing process that we had was actually making these trims and sills. So the sills are a sturdy bit of copper, but the trims they're almost foil thin. Yeah, so when we bent them, they had some rigidity, and after adhering them to the cork, they're quite solid, but they're more there for a decorative feature. And when they go green, they will sort of relate to the timber extension that you see here. The malachite fascia boards will relate to the copper in the cork. So again, the patterns on this are based off the concept, and this central image here is actually all of the platonic solids overlaid on top of each other and then copied across. And then we've taken voids and infilled it with timber. The paints that we've used are sort of VOC free.
Low VOC. Sorry.
Yeah.
Low VOC paints.
Low VOC paint.
Volatile organic compounds.
Yeah.
And then, as you'd seen in the existing photos, there was our front door was here. So what we actually did, we privatized it and had we've got an entrance to the side, and it gave us a real good opportunity to actually provide a bench for the bus stop. So because we think that buildings should give back to the community in some way and shouldn't really be isolated from the community. They should be interactable in some sort of way. And here was a perfect opportunity to show that. So internally, this is where the staircase was, and everything past this point here is the extension, and this was the original corner of the house. Here was your front door, which over the front door there was a stone lintel. We dropped that lintel and now it acts as your first step. A lot of the internal features of the house and carpentry is all done out of birch faced ply. It's not the most sustainable material, but this is somewhere where we had to compromise due to cost, and as we were making it all ourselves, we felt comfortable using sheet material. So here we've used one of the highest qualities of sheet material there is. The flooring in here is parquet flooring, which we picked up secondhand, and we've got about 5 or 6 square meters worth there for about £70. So we've got that for a bargain, really. All of the paints that you see are clay-based paints. Cork again on the internal face of the extension. So within this is the original living and dining space, where the form hasn't changed in this location because this had already been opened up quite nicely, the space between the living and dining room. What we've done here is we've added a feature piece that relates to our concept. We've kept the original Edwardian fireplace and surround and tiles. And then what we've done is we've added these 3 infill panels. So these 2 infill panels relate to the geometry of the tiles. And then this central panel relates to the modern geometry that we've created. Because there's still suspended floors that we've insulated, we were left with radiators within these 2 rooms. We didn't have the budget to have new radiators, and they were perfectly fine, to be honest. So it's more sustainable to keep things if they're still working. We added some radiator covers that related to the concept. Cork flooring again within the space. The kitchen here, we've got copper splashbacks, a black oak worktop, and then on the right hand side, generally it's all salvaged units from the old kitchen, and behind this image as well, where we've got the sink. But on the left hand side, this was the new part of the kitchen. We knocked through the chimney to create a vista from the kitchen and dining room, because it's quite important to have that connection. Again, we've used clay paints, 2 different colors in the kitchen. So again, the patination on here has been done through the concept. When you overlay all of these 5 platonics, they're all encompassed within a circle. So within the kitchen, how'd you go back? Within the kitchen here, you'll see quite a few, 2 or 3 circles. We've got a circle here, we've got a circle here, and then we've got a circle here as well. Again, all these patterns are a play and an experiment of what can be achieved with the concept in mind. So behind these sort of doors, we have a new boiler that we put in, and all of the pipework. So we ended up going with a new boiler purely because of the fact, finances. When we got around to getting some quotes out, they were just taking up too much of the budget, and we really focused on the fabric first. We have kept the spacing between the sort of underfloor heating pipes at a distance, so they can accommodate for an air source heat pump, which would again just be an add-on to the building. Hence the reason why we haven't got solar panels, because again they came in at too much of a cost for us at the time. And then moving on upstairs, we haven't shown any of the patination in the bedrooms because we wanted to keep them quite sort of plain and simple. But then we've decided to have murals on the doors that reflect the concept. The banister here was made from all of the scraps of the plywood from making the staircase. So there was about 300 pieces which were all glued together to form the balustrade. Right, thank you very much for listening. Welcome to take any questions if anyone has any.
I have a question I've been dying to ask Samuel and Raveena, and I think you mentioned, is it CNC tool or CNC machine? Can you say
Yes.
a bit more about that? Is that an acronym?
Yeah, it's a computer numerical
Computer numerical.
Oh,
Oh my God, compute.
there's
It's
someone
come on
just
my
said
mind.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a machine that it's basically the one that we've got because it's not very high tech. It was a do-it-yourself one. We made it at home, and it's just basically a aluminium frame which you put a router to, and once you design something on the computer, you can put it into a software and create a G code from it. And then that G code is a bunch of coordinates, which those coordinates tell the machine where to be at a certain point and how deep to cut. So yeah, that's how a CNC machine works.
Great. Are they expensive?
We picked it up for £1,500, so not really considering what we've done with it in 2 years, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I see there are a couple of questions. Annie, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. I was just wondering if you've done an airtightness test.
We haven't as of
done
yet. No, we're still yet to do. We're still yet to do a test.
Did you have wet plaster throughout?
Sorry.
You use wet plaster throughout?
Well, no, we actually kept the original
Yeah, okay.
plaster where we've got paint, and then where we didn't have the plaster, we've got timber.
Yeah, okay. It'd be interesting to know what the result is at the end.
Yeah, sure. We'll
definitely share
we'll
that
share
with
that when
everyone.
we get it done.
And can I sneak in a second question as well?
Yeah, of course.
How long did it take for your lime screed to dry? Was that a long process or was it okay?
We waited about 3.5 months, but we were walking on it after 3 weeks.
Okay.
But we didn't build the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it all
Great.
depends on what time you do it as well. We did it when the temperature was good as well. So doing it in the winter would take a lot longer.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much.
No worries.
And Gaynor, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, I was wondering how the exterior cork covering is sealed, if it is sealed, of course.
Yeah, so it's not and it is. So it's not sealed by us. That's just how it's come and that's how we put it on. There's no need for a sealant. But there is a natural sealant. And the way that these boards are made, it's a very simple process. And so the cork trees are harvested every 8 to 10 years. And from harvest, they're sort of crushed and then they're put in a big, like, sort of pressure cooker that expands the cork. And whilst it does that, it releases a natural resin within the cork that binds it all together and makes it one solid board.
Oh, so it's naturally waterproof.
Yes.
Ah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Hermione, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
I just wondered if you'd been interested in ACB retrofit certification? Or, and if not, the reason you didn't look at that?
No, yeah, we haven't. And I guess right now it's time for us. We really want to focus our energies on other areas of architecture.
Would you mind me asking, AACB, what that stands for?
It's the Association of Architects who are trying to improve retrofit standards, and there are now regional assessors who are looking at various projects. Usually, I think you have to do something as a baseline, but actually, it's only the final tightness test that matters. So I thought maybe as you've been talking about air technology, maybe you were interested in doing it. I think it's just a step by some architects to try and improve quality, as I understand. But I thought, as you are architects, you might have views about the usefulness of it or whatever.
Yeah, no, we haven't done it today, but it might be something to look into. Yeah, if it just takes an air tightness test.
Yeah, so you've done an EPC test after adding the cork, haven't you? So no air tightness, but you've got the APC.
Yeah, we
EPC,
did an
sorry.
EPC test. That went from a low D to a high C.
Yesterday, I was also interested overall in how long it took you for the whole project.
The whole project took 23 months in total, build that is, and then planning took about a couple of months, 2-3 months.
Yeah, 3 months, I think. We were living in the property whilst we were doing it, so it was a challenge in itself.
Yeah, which we wouldn't recommend anyone do.
It looked very easy on your video, you know, when it all happens in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot from doing this project, and that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to try and do as much as we can with our own hands. And yeah, it's been a really interesting process. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone who's joined in this video today. So
yeah, and there's another question from Amy. Maybe if you want to unmute Amy.
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering if you noticed so far like an actual feeling of like improvement in terms of heating or air quality so far.
Yeah, we definitely have. The heating's on a lot less. We reduced it by 30% in our bill. But yeah, we just generally feel warmer, in general. And I think a lot of that is to do with the underfloor heating as well. It plays a large part in it, because it's not like a radiator where it just dissipates the heat straight away. The underfloor heating really does heat a mass that stays heated for quite a while.
We've also noticed that the temperature remains at a much more constant temperature.
There's less fluctuation.
A lot less fluctuation. In terms of the feel, yes, I think not only do we realize it, but people when they came on the tours and people who have visited us have also noticed that the air quality in the house is different to normal homes. And I think that is because of the factor of breathability of the house.
Oh, brilliant. No, it's beautiful, by the way. So, and congratulations.
We have a couple more questions. Margaret, would you like to unmute and ask yours?
Hi.
Hi.
I just have written the copper in the kitchen is absolutely beautiful. Can you talk about the finish there, and have you treated it, or will it change?
So that's one location where the copper we have treated, and we've sealed it with this solution called Everbright, just because we wanted The kitchen was really the even though it was south facing, it was one of the darkest rooms in the house. And one exercise of doing all of this work was to flood light into that space. So and the copper, keeping it shiny, would reflect that light even more.
It was a really easy material to use as a splashback though, because we purely bought it as sheets.
As sheets, yeah. So we've just adhered the sheets next to each other with minimal cuts. And yeah. I think what we've learned is people can, people can do more than what they think they can do. It was only 2.5 years ago where we started this, and we took it on, and what we've been able to achieve, I think, is beyond what I ever thought we could achieve.
I think we've also learned that you can use materials in a very different way. They don't necessarily have to be bought from a shop as wall tiles or splashback specifically. You can kind of think outside of the box and, you know, look at recycling and repurposing materials as well. And we've tried to do that through this process, even from just the waste material that we create, and trying to reuse that, or the bricks that we demolish from the porch and the internal walls that we removed, we reused in the front wall that you saw with the circle. So we have tried to repurpose as much as we could.
It's lovely to see. We've got one last, a couple of questions now. Annie, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, sorry, more questions. I was going to say, what's your next kind of project after this? And are you going to continue with architecture, but also building?
No, we definitely want to continue with architecture. We've just about set up our practice, conscious design studio. But I think we want to do things a little bit differently. I'll provide a different sort of service where we're sort of more hands-on and have that option of guiding clients through a process a little bit more, and just giving them all the options, and seeing what's possible.
Sounds great.
And Amy, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, going back to you talking about the using scrap wood to create the balustrade. How did you do that yourself and keep it like straight?
So with a lot of patience.
Okay.
Just add, it's also not completely straight.
Yeah, it's not completely straight. It's not
okay.
like, no, the balustrade is quite good, but not everything is absolute in this house.
That's quite nice though, because if you can
I
kind of
think it adds to the
journey.
character of the house. And it also, we really want to encourage people doing their own things, because in this market it's so expensive to do anything to your house. And in actual fact, trying it for yourself makes it so much more affordable to do something. Otherwise, architecture becomes for the super rich, and it shouldn't really be.
Yeah, I've tried a few things myself, but yeah, it's just as you say, patience and time, I think is the key.
And just remembering there is no such thing as perfection. It's part of the process, learning to make mistakes and show them and embrace it.
As long as it's structural, which it is.
Yeah, fair. Wise words.
So the balustrade is made out of like 300 squares, which were glued 12 at a time, because that's the size of clamps that I had. And then they were glued with weight when I glued more of them together.
Okay, that's what I was kind of wondering how you like.
Yeah, it was a little bit difficult, but yeah, we got there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Samir and Raveena, and have a good evening.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.